Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to take a look at Rolling Stone magazine's top 50 video games of all time. Yes, the magazine most often associated with coverage of music. I saw that they released their top 50 video games of all time and I figured how fun would it be to pop in there and kind of just react to their list. I think it'd be a fun opportunity to, one, just see how a magazine that most often is talking about music would rank 50 video games, but also maybe fun to see how many of these video games have I actually played and maybe share some gaming shame for some of these top games that I've never played before. So I think it'll be a lot of fun. We're going to jump in cold. I have not looked at this list yet, and so hopefully this finds you well and we can kind of dive in and react to this together. But this is going to be more podcast in nature. I am drinking a piping hot Be Our Guest Beauty and the Beast coffee here, and just looking forward to jumping into this and kind of seeing what's going on with Rolling Stone magazine talking about video games. What the heck is going on there? But we are going to shift gears here and jump into this and kind of make sure, we'll see once we get into this article here how I might need to shift my camera around. But one of the things that actually inspired this idea, I am kind of borrowing this from someone else, Kind of Funny Games, they ended up reacting to it, and when I saw that in my subscription feed, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to jump in there. And it took them almost 2 hours to do it. I don't know if we'll be here that long, but we're certainly going to take our time with this and just have fun with it. So let's go ahead and jump into the article and see what's going down. All right, so as soon as I jumped into the article, there was like an explosion of ads, and they just continued to populate as I'm navigating the article. So I at least have done you the favor of adding the Chrome extension. We're in dark mode, okay? You're at least not being blinded, but warning for folks that might be sensitive to popping, flashing type of things, because these ads, you just never know what to expect. But we're in here. Apparently, Rolling Stone has added a gaming coverage, RS Gaming. Sounds like some kind of YouTube channel from like 15 years ago. Talking about RuneScape, potentially. But anyways, the top 50 greatest video games of all time, according to Rolling Stone magazine. From Super Mario to Grand Theft Auto, these are the titles that have defined the culture by Rolling Stone. Let's read a little bit of this before we jump into the actual picks. There was a time when a great video game just needed to be fun. In the days before 4K screens and season passes, it was all that mattered. It didn't matter if the design was janky, if you could finish the whole game in one sitting, and frankly, if it was way too hard. But things evolved. Over time, games became more layered. They could tell a story the length of a novel or with the strength of a film. They could challenge the mind either with puzzles or a test of reflexes. Most importantly, they could bring people together. In an online lobby, arcade, or just on the couch, gaming is really the story of the people who play them. But to pick the best games ever made, there's a lot of considerations. Gaming is a medium where sequels thrive. They can always look and play better. And while certain gaming dynasties run dozens of entries deep, there needs to be representation across the board. Okay, I'm already liking this. Today, everyone's a gamer, but they're not all playing the same thing. For this list, we looked at both how influential each game was at arrival, as well as whether it still holds up. A good game may have played well, but a great one still does. These are games that made the culture what it is today and will chart where it goes tomorrow. Now, what's the over-under on them using Copilot to write that? Something to consider. But regardless, I like their decisioning, or their decision-making for what would be considered as part of this list and what wouldn't be. I think that's just fair game. Now, we'll see if, even though they have that caveat to begin with, how that actually translates to the list. I imagine there's a lot of representation from Grand Theft Auto and Mario, as they said. Certainly The Legend of Zelda. I would be shocked if Breath of the Wild was not a top 5 game, but I'm wearing my Banjo-Kazooie t-shirt because I'm going to riot if we don't see some BK representation. And Middle-earth, Shadow of War, better be on the list. And Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Okay, where are my Lord of the Rings game fans at? But yeah, let's go ahead and jump in and scroll down here and see what is at number 50. But all right, coming in at number 50, Animal Crossing New Horizons. All right, this is a great way to kick things off. I'm not going to read their blurb for every game unless I find it to be like a really interesting pick, or I just want to get more context to their decision for selecting it. Although I will read this first little piece here because I think it perfectly captures why this game was so important. When the COVID-19 pandemic made the world look hopeless, Animal Crossing New Horizons provided a deliriously cute counterbalance. Over 30 million people bought the social simulation game in its first year on the market, which is that real? 30 million copies sold? That seems a little, I don't know. We need to fact check that. But anyways, ringing into the new age of cozy gaming with the mini anthropomorphic animals that use New Horizons' customizable island as a makeshift Munchkin land. Yeah, I mean, I talked about it in a previous video. Animal Crossing New Horizons was the perfect pandemic game. I think kept a lot of us sane when we were all locked down and in quarantine, and I have so many great memories playing this game with many friends that I've met here on YouTube. My wife and I locked in our apartments. We couldn't go anywhere, but we certainly had a lot of fun playing Animal Crossing New Horizons. So, excellent pick. Great way to kick off the 50 games here. Let's keep moving along. Next up, we have Hades, another 2020 release in a roguelike that I have yet to play. There are some really, really big fans of this game, and I think for good reason. I've heard the dialogue it's a very well-written game, and once you start playing, it is an addictive hook that you just cannot put down once you start playing it. So, yeah, live, die, repeat. So, definitely one I want to give a shot. We have a copy on Switch, so whether I play on Switch or PlayStation 5, I'm sure it's something that I will give a try at some point. And then we have Hades 2 to look forward to, I think, here in the near future. But Hades, great pick. Happy to see it on the list. Ooh, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I think one of the first games that kind of coined the Metroidvania subgenre. This and Super Metroid back in the day on Super Nintendo and PlayStation. This is one I've not played. I think I've actually only played one Castlevania game to completion, and that is Portrait of Ruin on the DS, which is a fantastic one. And I've been meaning to play Symphony of the Night as part of the... there was some kind of like soft remaster port collection that they brought to current generation consoles that I think has Symphony of the Night and maybe Rondo of Blood and maybe some of the other Castlevania games. I'm not entirely sure, but haven't played this one, so we're what are we at now? 1 for 3 in terms of games that I've played. But yeah, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Again, it's very early in the morning and a rough night with the baby, so you'll have to excuse my my lack of being able to speak words here. But we press on. Ooh. All right. The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, an absolute classic. When we saw this initial picture here, I thought, oh my gosh, are they going to include the CDI Zelda games here on the list? But no, this one absolutely makes sense. I'm actually kind of shocked it's so far down, number 47. But I think the Super Nintendo era, maybe more than any other console of the past, will continue to stand the test of time because of the color palette, the 16-bit music. I think folks that really don't tend to gravitate towards retro games, I think you can pick up the Super Nintendo and play those games, and they still feel so good. They control so well. That color palette and all the different colors on screen just pops and looks really, really beautiful even nowadays. And I don't think the same can be said for stuff like the PS1 and N64 and even the NES. Maybe just, party of one here, but I don't think the NES games hold up as well nowadays. I'm not speaking specifically to Zelda, it's just more NES games as a whole, but again, that's just probably my own gaming taste coming out. But Link to the Past, excellent choice, fantastic game, and again, I'm a little surprised it's so far down on the list, but we continue to make our way down. League of Legends. Okay, another one I have not played. Never really got into that MOBA scene, although there is a Lord of the Rings MOBA called like Guardians of the West or something like that was on Xbox 360 and PS3. Never ended up playing that one, but if I ever was to play MOBA, it would probably be that. But let's see what they say here. It doesn't matter how skillful you are at League of Legends, you're always one miscalculation away from losing. The multiplayer online battle arena has become an esports hit based on a simple premise. Pick a champion, get stronger, and strategize with your teammates to destroy the enemy base. Taking inspiration from Dota, which was originally a mod for Warcraft 3, the engrossing loop of League lies in its easy-to-learn, difficult-to-master nature, which is heightened by an overwhelming selection of over 160 champions, each with its unique abilities. So, not surprised, but again, I'm a little surprised with the ranking. Like, League seems also a little low on the list, but I have to imagine they're probably going to have Fortnite as a top 10. So, all right, we're about 2 for 5 or however many games. I mean, maybe I'll keep a counter at somewhere on the page to make note of the number of games that I've played on the list. Oh, wow. I spoke it into existence. Fortnite. Number 45. Another game I have never played. I probably never will play it. It's just not my cup of tea. But, my gosh, what a phenomenon when this game came to console and just set the world on fire. And spawned all kinds of goofy dances, kids running around, taking their parents' credit cards and probably buying all kinds of nonsensical microtransaction outfits and whatever else you do in Fortnite. I honestly don't know. I've never played it. I have no intentions of doing so. But another that I'm surprised to see is so far down the list. So, continuing to make our way. There it is. I'm sure we'll see plenty of From Software representation here. Elden Ring coming out in 2022 and locking in the 44th spot on their list. And yeah, I guess it kind of escaped me that George R. Martin kind of worked with Miyazaki and kind of building out the lore of this world. And one that I needed to go back to, I put about, I don't know, 30 hours into Elden Ring, got pretty deep in the game, and then as you do in a lot of these FromSoft type games, you get stumped. A boss stops you from making progress, and I was kind of just banging my head against the wall and had to walk away. But one I want to go back to for sure, an unbelievable open world. I mean, one that is almost a little too big, but the verticality of it, and just how much you can do and explore and all of its many secrets. I mean, there's so much of that game that is probably unseen by players that have rolled credits because of how big it is. But one I want to go back to for sure. All right, 43, another indie classic that I have not played, Celeste. I actually did download this on Game Pass more recently. If you're not listening to the Indie Quest podcast, you should be. It is your place for the indie and obscure. 3 guys that just have a love for indie games in general, and it's just a great way to expand my own gaming horizons and certainly yours. You should check out their show. They've talked about Celeste many times. A platformer that I've heard has a really unique and heartfelt story, but my goodness, is it crushing on the difficulty front. So, happy to see it on the list. Celeste is not one that I would really anticipate being on a top 50 list from a gaming outlet, let alone a place like Rolling Stone. But I love the pick. And if that's a sign of things to come, then maybe we'll even see stuff like Journey on here, which would be terrific. But Celeste, great pick. I do actually want to read this here. There are a few experiences more pleasing than succeeding at a level in Celeste. Structured around a literal and metaphorical mountain to climb, indie developer Maddie Thorson's opus asks players to never give up, no matter how impossible the task ahead may seem. A pixelated 2D platformer, Celeste has a simple premise. Chain together insane combinations of parkour-like leaps, wall jumps, and dashes to make it just a little bit further, inching room by room to victory. I love that. And I like kind of like thematically what the game's about too, just about never giving up and climbing that mountain. So very cool. It's on Game Pass. I've downloaded it. Now I just got to play it. So love the pick. Happy to see it here on the top 50. Here we freaking go. Batman, Arkham City, my goodness, their follow-up to Asylum, and they just completely knocked it out of the park. A lot of people were not a fan of that open world. I personally loved it. The voice acting, Kevin Conroy as Batman and Mark Hamill playing the Joker, unbelievable. Just so good. And I think before Marvel's Spider-Man, between this and Asylum, was the best superhero video game ever. Rocksteady was just on their A game back then during this era. And gosh, what a fall from grace. It is such a shame to go from Asylum to City. Arkham Knight I've not yet played, and then you have Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. It's a real shame, but if you've not played the Batman Arkham games, there is a Return to Arkham remastered collection for current generation consoles. Highly recommend it. They kind of, not coined necessarily, but during that kind of Assassin's Creed counter combat system, they kind of mastered it, in my opinion. And you go on to see it in stuff like Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor, and of course Marvel's Spider-Man as well. But my goodness, excellent stories, great open world, phenomenal voice acting, one of my absolute favorites. Great to see it make the list here at 42. Here we go. Gaming shame moment. Never finished Metroid Prime. Had it on the GameCube, made it a decent way through it, but never got around to finishing it. What a move by Nintendo, though, to go from 2D to 3D first-person shooter for the GameCube. I miss the era of Nintendo where they were genuinely taking risks with the games that they were making, and I feel like there's really no better example, possibly, the Nintendo fans will come after me in the comments, but I don't know if there's a better example from Nintendo of really truly reaching than the GameCube era. You look at stuff like Kirby's Air Ride, Star Fox Adventures, Luigi's Mansion, even Super Mario Sunshine with that little jetpack thing, and of course, Metroid Prime. Look no further than that to see just the really not being afraid to go against the grain and doing different things. And Metroid Prime, really happy it got a remaster on Switch. Definitely one I want to play, and hopefully for Switch 2, we end up getting remasters for Metroid Prime 2 and 3 as well. And then Metroid Prime 4, right around the corner. I have to imagine it's coming out this year as a launch or near launch title for Switch 2. Great pick, love to see it. Wow. Chrono Trigger at 40. What the hell is this top 10 gonna be like? This is shocking to me. It really is. I knew it was gonna make the list. It had to have. One of the most well-known, well-recognized JRPGs of all time. Classic art design by Akira Toriyama. Phenomenal soundtrack. Just such a timeless game, no pun intended, given the time travel aspect of this RPG. One I need to go back to, I got to the final boss and never beat Chrono Trigger when I was in college playing it on the DS. So, a wrong I need to right, maybe this year. Really happy to see it on the list. Again, this game will always stand the test of time, but a little shocked it's number 40 and not higher up. Man, this almost seems like it's in reverse order, doesn't it? God of War, Fortnite, Chrono Trigger, The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. I feel like those are top 20 games. So, nonetheless, we move on. God of War 2018, another game that really moved the needle forward in terms of like what you expect a series to be. Kratos just typically just ripping apart Greek gods, and now you're kind of moving to Norse mythology, a story of father and son. One I absolutely loved. I'm probably more partial to Ragnarok, and that has less to do with the quality of the game and the storytelling and more time and place that I played it. I streamed a little bit of God of War back in the day, and I was heavily distracted while I was playing it, and so I ended up playing the second half of the game off stream, which was to my benefit. But yeah, another game that I think will definitely stand the test of time, and a game we'll be looking back and talking fondly on 20 years from now. Easy. No doubt about it. So happy to see it, but another one seems further down the list than I would expect it to be. I'm going to sound like a broken record. What the hell is going on here, Rolling Stone? Shadow of the Colossus at 38? What's going on here? But yeah, no, it has to make the list. Another one, shamefully, I have not finished. No better way than to play the remake on PlayStation 4. Bluepoint does not miss in that department. And yeah, the Team Ico team is, they recently announced their next game. Even if it's a decade away, they're hard at work on it. But yeah, Shadow of the Colossus, another classic. I actually remember going to my buddy Scott's house, which is where I first discovered Final Fantasy VII and my favorite game of all time, Kingdom Hearts, Perfect Dark, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater on the N64. I discovered so many games at his house growing up. And I remember watching him play through a great deal of Shadow of the Colossus on PS2. And it just felt like I was watching this obscure art film, you know? That if you took like some kind of film history class in college, they would have recommended you watch the movie Shadow of the Colossus. And that's kind of what it felt like sitting on the couch watching him play the game. And just playing it is just a fascinating concept, you know, just running around this world, riding the horse to that next beast or colossal creature that you have to fight. Really interesting. And yeah, happy to see it make the list here. Another wrong I need to right by going and finishing that on PlayStation 4. Heck yeah, you love to see it. I'd be shocked if we don't see more Pokemon games going forward, although Rolling Stone did kind of hint at maybe only one game per series. We'll see going forward. Gold and Silver, unbelievable games. To have a full-blown RPG in the Johto region, and then, psych, you can actually go to the Kanto region and go face all of those gym leaders as well. To fit all of that on a Game Boy Color cart back in 1999. I don't even know what to say. Kudos to Game Freak. But, Game Freak, where is Let's Go Johto? Okay? Maybe a near launch title for Switch 2. Love to see another Let's Go Pokemon game. Certainly Wandering Johto. That would be excellent. Love the pick. Happy to see it. I expect more Pokemon going forward. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. My gosh, what a dream game. Really. I mean, it is... Talk about shocking. I cannot believe that they were able to get so many series well represented across the board. I mean, Banjo-Kazooie, even though Microsoft owns the rights to Rare, getting Sora as that final character in Smash, Kingdom Hearts being my favorite game of all time, I couldn't believe it. That reveal trailer, Sonic, Snake from Metal Gear Solid. I mean, it really felt like every game developer like put down their weapons and came together to say, yes, let's make the all-star video game bringing all of our favorite franchises together in this arena fighter. So amazing. One of my favorites. I would say I'm partial to... I mean, Melee, I think probably you can make an argument as the best Smash game for sure. But the hype leading up to Super Smash Bros. Brawl, I mean, that's like a top 3 moment for me ever. Like, Kingdom Hearts 3 is right up there. Super Smash Bros. Brawl is like probably number 2. Because I went to that dojo page every single day, and they would drop like new stages that would be coming to the game, new character reveals, and sometimes it would just be an item. But man, the days that they dropped a new character or a new stage, that was exciting. Exciting days back in high school. But Smash Ultimate, I actually got that's when I got my Switch. I got the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Special Edition Switch console. And yeah, it was super cool to get that as my first game. And yeah, we'll see if Sakurai is hard at work on the next Super Smash Bros. Game, but my gosh, This is his magnum opus. He could ride off in the sunset and retire, and he would be and should be very proud of his accomplishments as a game designer and creator. Sonic the Hedgehog 2. All right, some Genesis representation here. Never been a fan of the Sonic series. I think you either grow up a Nintendo kid or you grow up a Sonic kid, or you grow up a Genesis kid, and you tend to gravitate towards either console. Not always the case. I think, we can love both. But for me personally, I was always just more partial to Mario, and just the speed of the Sonic game never quite made sense to me. Although I would love to play Generations, Frontiers, that new 3D platformer that came out not too long ago. I think I'd really like that one. And then I've always wanted to play Sonic Colors on the Wii. And I know they remastered that game for current generation consoles. I actually have a copy on the PS4. But yeah, no surprise that Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is on the list. I think that is often looked at as the best of the Sonic era, or the Genesis era, excuse me. So good pick here. Another indie classic here, Hollow Knight. 2D kind of Metroid style platformer, brutally difficult, as I've heard. I played this back in like maybe 2018, 2019. My brother-in-law and I were kind of playing it side by side, and I got about 3 to 5 hours in and I was enjoying it. But man, it's just such a dark and dreary world. And I kind of was looking for something a little bit more uplifting. But a game I want to go back to, especially, this has to be the year, people. This has to be the year that Silksong comes out, right? And there's no way I could play that if I don't play Hollow Knight first. So, love the pick. Really enjoying all of the indie representation as part of this top 50 so far. Hopefully it continues as we continue to make our way through the list. Next up, oh my god. Oh my gosh. Did the intern sneak this game in? What the heck is going on here? You put NBA 2K11 above A Link to the Past, Chrono Trigger, Shadow of the Colossus? All right. My respect for this list just went down about 25 points. That is, I don't even know what to say. I'm at a loss for words. If it was like NFL 2K5, the one with Terrell Owens on the front cover, or one of the 2K games on the Dreamcast, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, I'm okay with all those being above some of those other games. But NBA 2K11, get out of here. Get out of here. Blake Griffin for the Los Angeles Clippers, get out of here. Next up, we have a classic. We had to start seeing some arcade games make the list. Miss Pac-Man, no surprise here. Never been a fan of these classic arcade games to an extent, right? I mean, you go to an arcade, you play the Midway Arcade Treasures. They're fun. But Miss Pac-Man, Maze Madness on the PS1, Dreamcast, and N64, a little isometric 3D platformer, that's the Miss Pac-Man game that should have made the list, and the game that you should be going to eBay and buying right now. But totally expected to see a game like this on the list, so good pick there. Counter-Strike, another one that is no surprise, kind of an online third-person shooter, one that maybe first-person, I don't even know. I never played Counter-Strike, never got into it, also never really got into like Team Fortress 2 and some of those other PC online multiplayer shooters, but again, no surprise to see a game like this making the list here at 31. Hell yes. Yes. Wii Sports coming in at number 30. Totally deserves to be on a top 50. If I ever had to rank a top 50 games for myself, it would make my list. Arguably the best pack-in game for a console ever. I mean, now that we have Astro's Playroom with the PlayStation 5, I think that's certainly up there, but you can make a case for Wii Sports being the best pack-in game ever. I think it is the driving force behind the Wii flying off the shelves, finding it in grandma's house, finding it in retirement homes. Anyone could get off the couch and play Wii Sports. And I mean, you can't overlook the music in Wii Sports too. Some banger songs, and just a treat to play with your parents, to play with your siblings, your cousins, your grandparents, whoever. Getting the Wii, even if you couldn't get Twilight Princess and some of the other launch titles like Red Steel, you at least had Wii Sports to rely on. And still holds up. Wii Sports is good times. So happy to see that make the top 30 here. And just to age all of us, next year, we'll be celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Nintendo Wii. All right? Start prepping your Wii retrospectives now, people. Oh, no. Yeah. Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Uncharted 2, Among Thieves, coming in at 29. I love the Uncharted series. I've talked about it so many times on this channel. And just to see Naughty Dog continue to grow and evolve as a developer, from Crash Bandicoot, Jak and Daxter, Uncharted, The Last of Us, and whatever their next game is, like Intergalactic Cyberpunk or whatever. Yeah, Uncharted 2, probably the best of the trilogy on PS3, and then certainly 4 and Lost Legacy. Would love to see one of those make the list here further on, but love the pick. Really good one. Another one you kind of just expect to see on any top 50, Minecraft, a game that I've never really been able to get into. I made this comparison in a video that I more recently did, talking about Animal Crossing versus Minecraft for kind of these cozy comfort games. Minecraft is kind of like this blank canvas, and it's like, hey, go do whatever you want to do, build whatever you want to build, and just explore and just have fun. It's a blank canvas. Animal Crossing, which we saw earlier in New Horizons at 50, is kind of more paint by the numbers. And I'm someone who kind of needs that structure in these types of games. I just get overwhelmed. I don't really know what to build or what to do, but I totally understand the appeal. There's a reason why people are still playing this game nearly 15 years later. Minecraft is an all-timer, and I totally get all the hype surrounding it. So, great to see make the list here. One of my absolute favorites, Resident Evil 4, coming in at 27. And a game that I did not originally play on PlayStation 2 or GameCube. I played it on the Nintendo Wii, which was such a great way to experience this game. I remember my really good and close friend in high school would come over to my house before school, and we would like get 30 minutes to an hour of playtime in this game before going to school, and then we'd rush home after school and continue to make our way through the game. A really fun game to play with a nunchuck and Wiimote, just because of that motion controlling. It kind of added a sense of tension and heightened the action in that third-person horror game. But Resident Evil 4, another that stands the test of time, even if you go play it on its original console. But the best way to experience it today is certainly the remake on current-gen consoles. Love the pick. Mass Effect 2, another series that I was hoping to see on the list and expecting to see. I played through this entire trilogy back-to-back when I was in college, after 3 had released, and that was like the best way to experience it. It was like getting the original trilogy Star Wars movies on Blu-ray and never having seen the films and just binging them and like, oh yeah, I understand why this sci-fi, high fantasy world in series is so beloved. Mass Effect is no exception. Hopefully BioWare gets back on track, because I don't think Dragon Age of the Veilguard, and certainly not Andromeda, and my gosh, we can't even talk about Anthem. They've gone downhill quite a bit. But if you want to experience the golden age of BioWare, go back and play the original Mass Effect trilogy, which you can do via the Legendary Remastered Collection today. Love the pick. Happy to see it. Stardew Valley, speaking of cozy comfort games, another one that I have not personally played myself, just because that's not really my cup of tea, but one I'd like to give a shot. I'd like to give a shot. And Concerned Ape, the solo developer, I've listened to quite a bit of their music over the years because just excellent soundtrack, fun little 16-bit world, and yeah, no surprise to see this, but I would have expected this to be more like in the 40s or 30s, not necessarily the top 25, but hey, people love Stardew Valley, and it sold an absurd number of copies, so good pick. Yes. Yes. The original Sims. One of my absolute favorites. If I had to make a top 50, this would make the list too. I remember our old Windows PC. My mom, after school, would be sitting there watching like The Days of Our Lives and all these other soap operas, and I would be playing The Sims. And I think they probably didn't call out his name, but Jerry Martin, I believe is his name, the composer of the music. Just that soft piano playing on loop, using the Rosebud cheat. Classic. But I remember playing this game and my mom was like, Rusty, whatever it is that you're playing, it's putting me to sleep, while she was watching her soap operas, which I don't know how the soap operas weren't putting her to sleep. Yeah, The Sims, that music is what gets you to go to sleep. But anyways, an absolute classic. I would always just find a plot of land, spam the Rosebud cheat, and just build my dream house. I could do that a million times over, even if I built the same type of house. It didn't matter. The original Sims, so much fun. I wish these games would come to Steam. I know there's probably all kinds of licensing issues with EA, but my gosh. Absolute classics. And speaking of absolute classics, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. I said earlier, I remember going to my buddy Scott's house after school. I would have been 6 or 7 years old. I walk in his house, and he's like, Rusty, you're not going to believe it. I got a new N64 game today, and it's a blue cartridge. And I like lost my mind. I'm like, what? I was more excited about it being a blue cartridge and less about like what type of game it was. But that set me and so many others on a path of enjoying skateboarding, okay? And the soundtrack, so many bangers, Goldfinger's Superman. We would restart the warehouse level over and over and over again until Superman by Goldfinger would play. And then yeah, 2, 3, 3 and 4 on the PlayStation 2 are some of my favorites as well, but that original on the N64 is such a classic. Happy to see it in the top 25 for sure. Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare, another one that, not surprised it made the list. Really memorable campaign. I remember that level towards the very end when it's like an epilogue level when you're on the plane and you're kind of just going through and mowing guys down, and then eventually you kind of open that door and it's kind of slow motion. You kind of take out that main bad guy. So many memories playing this with my friends, playing it online. And then I had another friend of mine. I remember going to his house like Friday after school. We just had a routine for like a series of months. We'd go over to his house, we'd order pizza, we'd play games. He'd be playing this game online and just blaring Linkin Park because his parents weren't home. And so just listening to like Meteora and Hybrid Theory, playing Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. My gosh, take me freaking back. Let's get a 6-pack of Mountain Dew, eat some Doritos, and order some pizza. Man, such a fun time during that Xbox 360 and PS3 era. And speaking of, we have another game that was huge during that time, Fallout 3. This is one that I am ashamed I've never really been able to get into. Just such a drab, dark world. But again, I felt similarly when I played Oblivion for the first time, and then I went back to it and loved it. It's one of my favorite games of all time. And so I've given Fallout 4 a couple tries, and I've really come around to appreciating it and enjoying it. But I would like to go back and replay Fallout 3 in New Vegas for the first time, because I never played New Vegas, and I know that's Obsidian, but Fallout 3, wanting to go back to, although I wouldn't be surprised if Bethesda remakes that game at some point here in the future. All right, and coming in at number 20, Mario Kart 64. You love to see it. Given that Mario 64 is at pick 20, I only assume that Diddy Kong Racing is a top 15 game, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Mario Kart 64 is a classic. I mean, this is another one I played so often with my friends, and even in high school, we brought out the N64 because as fun as Mario Kart Wii was, it's like, no, let's go back to the OG. Mario Kart 64, still such a joy to play. And again, classic music, just a ton of fun to play with friends. So happy to see that make the list. And I'm surprised, though, if there is no other Mario Kart representation, that they didn't just select 8 Deluxe, because that's like the Super Smash Brothers Ultimate of racing games, you know? So many tracks, they're probably still pumping out DLC for that, as far as I know, but still a great pick. Happy to see it here. Baldur's Gate 3. Wow. Wow. 19. Huh? Again, I'm a little surprised that, like, Chrono Trigger Link to the Past isn't in a spot like this, and Baldur's Gate 3 isn't a little bit further back. And that's not to speak to the game's quality. I wonder how much recency bias is here. But I've heard this is like the most definitive D&D type RPG ever. And there's a reason why it won Game of the Year, I think, last year. So, candidly speaking, I don't know if I'll ever play this. As much as I know I would enjoy it, it would probably take me 6+ months to get through this game. Maybe I should, because it's just, it really is like a signature Rusty game. Even though I didn't grow up playing D&D, just that medieval universe is my jam. So maybe someday, convince me in the comment section. Baldur's Gate 3, happy to see it squeak into the top 20 here. Madden NFL 2004. What a weird pick. For 18? I don't even know what to say for this one either. Let's read what they have to say here. Sports games are an essential part of pop culture, existing right at the nexus between mainstream popularity and cult-like fandom. No series better embodies this ubiquity than Madden. Since launching in 1988, the series has continued annually, perpetually evolving alongside the NFL itself. Okay, let's see what they say here. But of all the installments, 2004 holds a special place for many as the one that introduced owner mode, taking the action beyond the field into controlling a franchise right down to the hot dog sales. Okay, well that makes more sense. But if they were going to include a football game, I'd prefer to see something like NFL Blitz on the N64, PS1, and Dreamcast, or again, those NBA 2K games, either on the Dreamcast or like PlayStation 2 era, were so good. But makes sense. I question the ranking. That's all I'll say. But we press on. Diablo 2, another one I kind of anticipated seeing at some point on the list here, and another one I have not played. I have a copy digitally, I think on PlayStation 4 or 5 or whatever it is. Another game in series like these looter type action RPGs that I don't want to say they're not my thing. I've just never really gotten into them. I've never really played much of them, but I know they're an addicting loop. There's 4 Diablo games for a reason. People love them. So a series I need to get around to giving a try for sure. But no surprise, Diablo making the top 20 here, the second game that is, but cool pick. I expected this game to make top 10, but Red Dead Redemption 2. Loved the first game on 360, especially that ending. Wow. And the second game is one that I was actually thinking about playing during my paternity leave, but I never got around to it. And I've pulled it off the shelf and almost included it in my my backlog goals for the year, because my wife has been really wanting me to watch Yellowstone, which kind of takes place in a similar era, just kind of a similar vibe. And I said, as soon as they start Red Dead Redemption 2, trust me, we'll be watching Yellowstone in 1923 and 1917 and any of those other Yellowstone spin-off shows. We'll be watching and we'll be playing Red Dead 2. Rockstar doesn't miss, and They certainly won't here towards the tail end of this year, assuming Grand Theft Auto 6 releases. And before we get into it, if GTA 4 is the GTA pick on this list, I'm going to be disappointed, man. That is, in my personal opinion, one of the most overrated games ever. I love the GTA series, but 4 is just not my jam. And during that era, Sleeping Dogs was where I got my GTA fix. But we got to keep moving along here. The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt. Yep, no surprise to see this one either. I played this back in 2020. After I put down Animal Crossing New Horizons, I jumped into the world of The Witcher for the first time and finally understood all of the hype surrounding Geralt in that world, the side quests, incredible storytelling, just such a rich world to explore. And yeah, no surprise that it makes the list here, and definitely want to go and play the kind of remaster of sorts, at least the 60 frames per second boost that came to current gen here, maybe in the near future. All right, we keep pressing on. Street Fighter 2. Surprised to see it so high. I mean, I know it's one of the best fighters ever, but Number 14, Street Fighter 2. Never been into the Street Fighter games. I'm just not really into that type of a fighting game. Tekken has always been my go-to, dating back to Tekken Tag Tournament on the PS2, but Street Fighter, not really my cup of tea, but again, I understand why it's so loved by so many people and has been for decades at this point. So, all right, interesting pick for 14. Doom, the original on MS-DOS, 1993. And yeah, this at 13, also not really a surprise. I feel like now we're going to kind of get into that, like, original Zelda, Mario Brothers, World of Warcraft has got to be on the top 10, right? Those picks that we kind of all expect. And Doom, one of the original OG first-person shooters outside of Wolfenstein. If Doom is here, I doubt we'll see Wolfenstein, but we'll see. Another series that I've never been super into, although I would love to, of course, play the kind of the reboot back in 2016, Eternal, and more than anything, The Dark Ages this year. It almost made my list of top 10 most anticipated, because just that kind of style is just my kind of thing. And just that fast-paced, kind of frenetic first-person shooting gameplay seems like a ton of fun. So 13, no surprise seeing it there. I manifested it into existence here. World of Warcraft is number 12. I've always wanted to play it. I really have. And I don't know how they would do it, but I remember there was an Xbox showcase a while back, and given like the trailer or what they were teasing, I totally thought they were bringing World of Warcraft to Xbox. If they ever do, I will certainly play it. 100%. No doubt about it. But I think it's probably for the best, my education, my sanity, my friendships, and everything in between, that I never got to playing WoW back in the day, because that is an addictive sinkhole that many people don't get themselves out of, and I just know myself well enough that it's probably for the best that I didn't play it. Although if there was ever an MMO that I really regret not playing at launch or near it, it's Lord of the Rings Online. I played it back in 2020, and I put about 50 hours in, and I was like, yep, I need to walk away now. Because if I don't, I probably wouldn't be recording this video, because I'd be playing Lotro, and I'd be online, and I wouldn't have been playing any other games for the past 4 to 5 years. But World of Warcraft, absolute classic, changed the game for MMOs, and no surprise, it's number 12. Heck yeah, the original Halo. Wow, 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 what a game. And another one that I think stands the test of time. I think it's unfortunate that we've kind of seen the downfall of the Halo series to a certain extent, although my brother-in-law and I have thoroughly been enjoying our time playing Infinite. We've been slowly making our way through that game for years, but back in the day, playing Halo 1, 2, and 3 for that matter, legendary difficulty with a bunch of your friends, playing through those campaigns. The music, Martin O'Donnell just scored some really memorable music that just perfectly complements that kind of like sci-fi first-person shooter. My goodness, what a series. Really happy to see it make its way onto the list and be as high as it is, although I personally would expect Halo 3. I assume we're not getting any more Halo games on the list, so a little surprising that they selected the first game. But again, it was started it all, so good stuff. Super Metroid coming in at 10. No real surprise here with that one either, and one that shamefully I've never played. Never played Super Metroid, and one I've been meaning to. I have the Super Nintendo Classic. You can play it on Switch Online on the Switch, so not a matter of if, but when I play Super Metroid, so no surprise seeing it on the top 10. Absolutely. Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. You could make a case, and by you I mean me, that this is my favorite game ever. Truly. Someone who grew up adoring Lord of the Rings and just wanting to be a part of that medieval high fantasy universe, Skyrim gives you that opportunity. You're in the first person. The way that game kicks off and just wandering that world. It's gray, it's cold, it's kind of like dreary, as opposed to that kind of high contrast, vibrant world in Oblivion. But that didn't matter. Earlier I talked about top 3 most anticipated games. If Kingdom Hearts 3 was at the top, Super Smash Bros. Brawl is right there. Skyrim is right also in that top 3 most anticipated games ever. And it didn't disappoint. And they've ported it and remastered it like 9 times at this point. I probably have 15 copies, and I can't wait for the PlayStation 6 to buy the Ultra Anniversary Edition and replay it once again. Number 8. Wow, can you believe it? We've gotten through this much of the list and we haven't seen a single Final Fantasy game? That's a little surprising. Honestly, very few JRPGs in general. I mean, we haven't seen any Persona, no Xenoblade, no Dragon Quest. That's unforgivable. And it's taken us this long to get a Final Fantasy game on the list. But 7, if they were ever going to pick one, we knew it was going to be that. I've said it umpteen times on my channel. I've never made it through the original 7, but of course I played Remake, loved Rebirth, and we are anxiously anticipating that third and final trilogy remake installment here, hopefully in the next couple of years. But absolute classic. No surprise it makes the top 10. Metal Gear Solid, the first one. All right, Kojima, how much money you pay Rolling Stone to put this on the list? No surprise. No surprise. A series that I've never personally been able to get into. Always wanted to. I love stealth games. I love kind of stealth espionage. Hitman is a favorite series of mine, and I've just never been able to get into these games. So I'm thinking that the remake for 3, probably a good entry point, although I've also really wanted to play the 5th game, Phantom Pain. It just seems like a really cool, immersive open world, and it kind of scares me. It's the main reason why I haven't played it, because I've seen that people have put like 50, 60, 70, 80 hours into that game, and I just don't know if I have the stamina for that much Metal Gear Solid and for one game. But series I want to get into, no surprise it makes the top 10. Kojima is a legend. Half-Life 2, another one that's not too terribly surprising to see. I did play this via the Orange Box on Xbox 360, and I really enjoyed my time. My gosh, Valve, Half-Life 3 when? Okay? We were all teased at the Game Awards this year that we might be seeing it, and we didn't. I don't have that much of an affinity for the Half-Life series, but I know it's held in very high regard by many people for very good reason. Coming in at number 5, The Last of Us by Naughty Dog, another one that is no surprise to see in the top 5 here. One of my favorite games of all time. I think this is one that a lot of people look at as being kind of overhyped and overrated, and maybe there's some truth to that, but as someone who just had a daughter of his own, I think it'd be really interesting to replay the remake of The Last of Us, because that father-daughter dynamic that they kind of build upon over the course of the game with Joel and Ellie is really special, and I think it will certainly stand the test of time. I think just narratively, The Last of Us is really strong, and Gustavo Santaolalla, that kind of like acoustic-y guitar that literally pulls on your heartstrings over the course of the game when certain music kind of kicks in. Just a really excellent game, and I actually didn't play The Last of Us until the PS4 remaster back in, I think, like 2018, and which meant I didn't have to wait too terribly long to play the sequel back in 2020. But great game. No surprise it makes number 5. Maybe when we get to 3, we can try and guess the top 3 here. But number 4, Super Mario World. Yes, I talked about it earlier. Super Nintendo games stand the test of time. Just so vibrant. That color palette just pops. The music is excellent. And this is one of my favorite games probably of all time. This might be like a top 25 game for me. I didn't play the original Super Nintendo game, but I had a Game Boy Advance SP, and my family drove down to Florida to go to Disney and Orlando Studios. And this is the game that I played on repeat, this and Pokemon Sapphire. And so some of those songs were just kind of ingrained into my brain, because driving down to Florida is no joke. And to have this game and Pokemon Sapphire in your back pocket to play on the drive made it a little bit more palatable. But yeah, Mario World stands the test of time for sure. Now we got to think about the top 3. I think Breath of the Wild is probably number 1, right? We just got to assume that. Is there anything notably missing from the Super Nintendo era? I don't know. I think Breath of the Wild, Bloodborne, or Dark Souls 1. I could see either of those 2 games sneaking into top 3. Bloodborne or Dark Souls 1. And Tetris. Tetris could certainly be up here. Maybe the original Legend of Zelda. I'm going to go Breath of the Wild, Tetris, Dark Souls. And I swear to you, I have not looked at this list before. Let's look at number 3. Oh, of course, Grand Theft Auto. Yep. We talked about it so much earlier, I forgot. Grand Theft Auto 5. Happy to see that instead of 4. I've never finished 5. I've played it for a couple of hours. Something I need to go back to for sure. But yeah, no surprise. This game has sold like 12 billion copies, and people are still pumping millions of dollars into Grand Theft Auto Online, I'm sure. Which is why they essentially have an unlimited budget for Grand Theft Auto 6, which will also sell like 1 billion copies. But no surprise to see that at number 3. So I'm going to go Tetris, Breath of the Wild then for 2 and 1. Boom. Tetris, number 2. Yeah, someone might say the perfect game, the perfect puzzle game. And certainly no better game to release alongside the Game Boy at its launch. And I'm not like some kind of Tetris fanatic, but playing Tetris Effect is certainly an experience. The original Tetris is not one I go back to very often, although I do love Yoshi's Cookie, or it might just be called Yoshi, where you have like eggs and other Yoshi, Mario type characters kind of falling in a similar puzzle-like fashion. But yeah, Tetris. I mean, it makes sense to be here. Which means Breath of the Wild or the original Zelda has to be number 1, right? I'm sticking with Breath of the Wild, but... Yep. Breath of the Wild coming in at #1. Let's give it its flowers and read this little synopsis here. The Legend of Zelda is a series defined by reinvention. With some exceptions, each game literally stars a different hero named Link in a different era or timeline from the last, trapped in a perpetual loop in the fight between good and evil. Each game presents new innovations, new mechanics and worlds to explore, down to their art style and tone. Breath of the Wild was revolutionary. It took the very simple premise of the original, a hero dropped cold into an unfathomably huge world, and run with it to the furthest extent. Other open world games let you feel like you're exploring, but Breath of the Wild makes every action a personal puzzle to solve. Leaving behind the endless fetch quests, checklists, and markers of the genre, it's a free-form game of discovery, where its colorful environments and subdued orchestral score lead players along by hinting at their curiosities. And while most games present players with a goal and maybe a handful of solutions, Breath of the Wild offers a world whose physics and rules were meant to be bent or broken. But beyond ways to play, the game's greatest achievement is building a place players want to be. More than anything else, Breath of the Wild is a vibe where you can spend your hours just doing whatever it is you want to do. Saving the day can wait. I can't say I'm surprised. I can't say I'm shocked. Is it deserving of it? Absolutely. I think it is. I've played Breath of the Wild many, many times. I've still only put about 10 hours into it. My Discord community has continued to give me all kinds of crap because of that. And I will go back to it, okay? I will go back to Breath of the Wild. I will give it the time it rightfully deserves. I will roll credits, and then I will come on here on my YouTube channel and explain to you, the audience, why the Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a great game, because I don't think enough people have heard of it yet. But anyways, that was a ton of fun. All right, I hope you enjoyed your time going through this top 50 list with me. Rolling Stone magazine, I think they did a pretty good job. Okay, you have to give them some credit. I think Madden 2004, what the hell are you doing? Get out of here with that. Ahead of Chrono Trigger and Shadow of the Colossus. That's nonsense. But all things considered, I think a pretty well-rounded list. A lot of great representation across all console generations. Lots of different genres well represented. Not enough 3D platformers for my liking. Okay, I didn't see Yooka-Laylee on there, in case I missed it. And certainly didn't see Middle-earth Shadow of War. But got to give them some grace. I think it was a pretty great list, all things considered. So let me know in the comment section below, what did you think of the list? Did you enjoy this more podcast-oriented video? If you did, maybe I'll do more of these types of reaction type things going forward. Not reacting to trailers or music videos or anything like that, but checking out things like this and kind of taking my time, kind of combing through lists, I think could be pretty fun, and just providing my commentary. So let me know down in the comment section below, did you enjoy this video, and what did you think of Rolling Stone's top 50 video games of all time? I want to thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.